Hello, Enactus. It's great to be here today. Thank you so much for your invitation to speak with you. Unilever has partnered with Enactus for almost 20 years in over 21 countries to help nurture that spirit of entrepreneurship that the world needs so much and to positively impact the lives and create better futures for everybody. You're told every day that the future is yours, but I really want to talk about the present today. It's that present that's so desperately needs of your impact. And I also want to share with you parts of my journey across Unilever, across different businesses and countries. I joined Unilever 20 years ago. That's insane, 20 years ago. And I was thinking today, that's 2 years, 1996, that's 2 years before Google was founded. I know. That's about 5 or 6 years to 7 before Facebook was founded. So I've become that guy, that old guy, that dinosaur. So cherish the moment, it goes fast. I left my country, Argentina, about 8 years ago to start my expat life with Unilever. And it's been a great journey. I'm still on that journey, and it's given me a wonderful wife, Petra, my Danny, my 2-year-old boy, and Barbara, who's my gorgeous 8-month-old little baby, who's born in Canada, by the way. So you see, I am doing my part in populating this country, this great country now. So this journey has also given me many experiences as I've, traveled different countries and worked with its wonderful people. And, I've worked in Central Eastern Europe, in Russia, in the Middle East, in Africa, in the UK, in the US, and just recently in Canada. And I'm really blessed and grateful for many things in my life. At the same time, I'm very conscious that the world is being battered by many problems: food security, climate change, social exclusion, and poverty being some of them, some of the major ones. We live in Unilever in what we call the VUCA world. It's volatile, it's uncertain, it's complex, and it's ambiguous. Many around the world simply call it the new normal. They say never will change be as slow as it is today, and there's many reasons for this. The world is becoming increasingly interconnected. It's the financial world and technology that drive this. Take, for example, the state of California or the province of British Columbia. 20% of the CO2 they have there is actually received from China. So this is how connected and interdependent the world has become. Myself, I'm from Latin America. I grew up there in the 80s and 90s, and that was a VUCA world already. I lived through many economic crises there, including a major one in 2001 that really rocked my world, and also one in which I saw my parents and my family lose their life savings. The crisis shook us at the time and threatened us at our very core. My experience is not unique, though. Many friends and family from over there went through exactly the same thing. So as family, we lost many things, material, but we still had each other. We stuck together and we powered through. And that's my first observation for developing and growing in today's changing world. It's the importance of fostering close ties with the people around us. It's true. Alone, everything falls apart. Together, we strive. So it was through these tough years that I actually built the foundation of my career at Unilever. For me, it was a time of great personal transformation that really thrust me towards new opportunities and possibilities. Some lessons that have stuck with me ever since, and I'd like to share with you. The first one is to embrace uncertainty. Embrace it because it's here to stay. And this doesn't mean enjoy uncertainty, because sometimes you will, sometimes you don't, but it's really embrace it. It's a bit like the Marines when they say, embrace the suck. Don't fight it, don't deny it, don't celebrate it, just embrace it. And this is great because when you embrace uncertainty, it's probably one of the biggest things you can do for your career. It really opens up so many windows, and you really go from, you leave your comfort zone and you transform the fear of the unknown for opportunities. So embrace uncertainty. I think if somebody would have told me 20 years ago that I'd be here today representing Unilever, leading Unilever in one of the most important countries in the world, a G7 country like Canada, I would have probably laughed and said, no way. So embrace uncertainty. The second thing that I've learned is to make sure to have a good and strong support group around me. So make sure you have a good support group. This can be a parent, it can be a mentor, it can be a friend, it can be a partner. Ideally, all of these. A support group will help you provide and will provide you that extra energy to go and drive through what you achieve. And it will also give you valuable perspective. And third, like in many things in life, when it comes to your career, It's really a marathon. It's not a sprint. And so, yes, look for the best job you can get. Look for your dream job. But if you don't land there, don't despair. Think about what you can learn, where you are at the moment. Think about what that place can teach you. And it helps a lot to have a vision and a purpose of what you want to achieve. So think about what you want to do in 10, 15 years. And you do, by the way. And consider how where you are today will help you learn skills to get there. So I mentioned the need to embrace uncertainty, the importance of having a good support group around you, that it's a marathon, it's not a sprint. And the last one really is about taking care of relationships. As a leader in a company, like in any other group, you need to take care of your relationships with people because you'll work with them time and again. So stand up for your ideas and drive them. I know I do as a hot-blooded Latin American. But remember, never take yourself too seriously, and also never make it personal. In the words of Maya Angelou, people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did to them, but people will never forget how you made them feel. So what attracted me to Unilever in the first place? It was definitely the spirit of entrepreneurship that I heard about there from people I knew, just from watching people who worked there and having conversations with them. Unilever is what we could call, if the term is correct, right, is a very social company. I like to think that a role there can be as large as you can make it. And there are processes, but very few constraints. It's really a network company. We work there always in multifunctional teams. There's job descriptions, but they don't limit what you can do. There's a basic framework to build upon, but the rest is really fluid. So this is an entrepreneur's dream. Imagine a place where you can have a good idea, or somebody in the team can have a good idea, and then you can just make it happen, like that, impact, and create change. It's really that simple. So I've learned that the spirit of entrepreneurship can live in a large company. It's not just the realm of a startup. Also, what drew me to Unilever is the incredible reach. Unilever reaches every day 2 billion people that consume our products and our brands. 2 billion, can you imagine that? That's like larger than the population of any country. It's a great power, and it's a great opportunity also, and a great responsibility. And of course, I was attracted to Unilever by the incredible brands. I've enjoyed working with Axe and with Dove, so with the devil and with God at the same time. And I've also enjoyed lately Ben & Jerry's. I hear you enjoy Ben & Jerry's quite a lot in university. Is that true? Cool. So we also work in Unilever with a very strong sense of purpose. It's determined by our mission, which is to double our business and at the same time half our environmental footprint. It's mind-blowing to me to think that we're going to be twice the size, but using half the resources. It's what we call the Unilever Sustainable Living Plan. We also want to create good through our brands by driving positive social impact. And so in that sense, I'm really proud of the work we do in Canada here. As a father of a little girl, I'm also especially proud of the Dove Self-Esteem Project, which is really about changing the views of beauty in the industry so that it stops being a source of anxiety. Go Dove. Kick ass, Dove. Yeah. So, now we got to get back serious again. So it's really about changing the views in society so it stops being a source of anxiety and it starts being a source of confidence. So it stops being something exclusive and only reserved for a few lucky people. And it starts being something more inclusive that celebrates our individuality. It's so much more fun. I'm also proud of the work we do with our foods brands. Basil has sponsored the Right for Heart for the Heart and Stroke Foundation for over 20 years, raising over about $2 million over the years. Go Basil. And I'm also very proud of the work we do with Hellmann's. You got to have a sandwich, right? So, Hellmann's and the Real Food Movement. The Real Food Movement is simply our intention of driving. We want all Canadians to have access to real food. This year, we're set to embark on a new effort to raise awareness on food deserts. Food deserts are places, communities, where people don't have access or real access to fresh fruit, fresh vegetables, because they're either not there to buy them, or if they're there, they're at prices which are ridiculously high. Imagine buying a little basket of fresh strawberries for $30, or buying a pound of tomatoes for $18. This is what the shopping experience feels for a lot of people in Canada. So this is, food security is not just an issue of the developing world, it's also an issue in rich countries, in wealthy countries, like our country. So if you want to learn more about the issues surrounding nutrition, I think you will enjoy two very cool documentaries. One is called Fed Up, and the other one is called A Place at the Table. They can be found on Netflix, and they really help to put some perspective into some of these issues. A strong purpose, as you all know very well, is vital. It's a vital force in an entrepreneur, because purpose gives us a strength to make the difficult decisions, to power through, the resolution, to get through great transformations. And we need now more than ever to go through great transformations. Because the days of stable governments and stable economies are gone. Just look at the price of oil. It's dropped like 50% in a year. Over the past years, we also see the end of the era of abundance. It's becoming more evident. It's very easy to see, actually. We've had enormous wealth accumulation, especially in the North Atlantic, in the European Union and North America. But we've done this by using quite a lot of resources. So take the top billion people in the world, the top earners in the world. All of us are in that group. We access 75% of the resources produced by the world. If you take, on the other hand, the bottom 1 billion, the people that you might call the poorest people in the world, they consume 1% of the resources in the world. But they aspire to live like the people at the top. It just doesn't add up. There's a recent Wildlife Foundation study that's been around actually for a while that said we're using resources at a rate of 1.5 planets. We only have one Earth, so it really doesn't add up. The same study said that if we all live like Americans, then we need 3 Earths. So it's really massive what we're facing. Nothing with Americans, also North Americans, huh? So you too in Canada. So it's really a tremendous challenge what we have. And so this is even before 2 billion new people are born to the world, right? And over the next decade or so. Or the billion people at the bottom aspire to live like the billion at the top. So it's a massive challenge, and it just doesn't add up. So what does this mean to us? It questions the very heart of our economic system. You probably remember Winston Churchill. He said democracy is the worst form of governance, except for all the other ones that were invented. And the same can be said about capitalism. It's the worst economic system, except for all the other ones we tried. Something unprecedented and spectacular has happened in the world over the past 15 years. 600 million people have been lifted out of poverty, mostly in China and in Africa. And this is no doubt a success of globalization and capitalism. However, as the great financial crisis in 2008 and 2009 has shown us, it's come at the cost of too many people left behind. It's come at the cost of too high government debt. And it's come at the price of very high consumerism. You know better than I do that a system where there's a lack of equilibrium and where far too people feel like they've been left behind, feel like they're not participating, will ultimately be ejected. No system will succeed if too many people feel that they're disenfranchised. These are not problems that the price mechanism will solve by itself through the invisible hand. In our world, 1 billion people go to sleep hungry every day, not knowing if they're going to wake up in the morning. Why is it today that 2.8 billion people still don't have access to water, clean water or sanitation? Why is it today that nearly 2.4 billion people don't have access or consistent access to basic human rights, and mostly young girls? Why is it today that nearly 2 million children die every year from simple diseases that could be prevented by the simple act of hand washing? There are consumer pressures to solve these issues, these huge issues, and governments cannot deal with them alone because they're not equipped to do it. They're mostly local governments who really struggle to function in an interdependent world. So what do you do if you run a company? What do you do if you run a company in a world like this? And if you see that governments are not doing what they should do because they can't, what you do is you take full responsibility and not run away from it. Companies need to think about what they can do to drive positive impact. A healthy business in an unhealthy society is simply unsustainable. We need to have a model that helps us solve the issues like poverty or food security or climate change and social exclusion. It's with the same force that the citizens of the world rally together to demand change that they can do the same with a company. So more than ever, it's urgent that we do this. It's almost out of self-preservation that we need to do this. Imagine if it only took 17 days to topple a regime in Egypt during the Arab Spring. It should be nanoseconds to topple a company. So as young leaders, I want to challenge you to putting your businesses, your future businesses, your brands, the resources of society, that precious resource, that precious responsibility we have, to driving the benefit and the best of society. It's an enormously powerful thing to do, and it's also extremely profitable. So what does it mean to be an entrepreneur in this world? Entrepreneurship is still key and fundamental, and will play an even more important role than ever. Why? Well, because we're in new territory, it's new waters, and the past is not a guide for the future. We cannot continue our practices of the past 50 years, be it financial exuberance or overexploitation of the environment. It would be great to have somebody to come from above, from the heavens, and just tell us how to do it, but it's unlikely to happen. What's most likely is that people like us here will need to manage through this and manage the precious resources of our society, which is our responsibility, and it's our great contribution to figure out how to make this happen. So transforming your knowledge and your potential and your capabilities into entrepreneurial action, that's the real gift of Enactus. What we're doing in Unilever is essential. We're reinventing capitalism, and we need people like you. The major problems we face today, we talked about them. I mentioned them a moment ago: food security, climate change, fragile employment or unemployment. We need to work at a very different level than what created these problems to start with in order to solve them. We need to work at a different level of transparency, because if you don't have transparency, you don't have trust. And without trust, you don't get prosperity. The skills of future leaders include systemic thinking, a deeper sense of purpose, a higher sense of partnership, and doing things for the long term. Now, if you think about this, and many academics, and Peter Senge from the MIT have written many books about it, these are skills that are very prevalent among the women in our society, including maternal instincts, the longer-term thinking, and the strongest sense of partnership. So to the women in the audience, if you worry that the future holds less space for you because you've been short-circuited out of your place in society, don't worry. I don't at all. In fact, there's a book that came out in the US a couple of years ago that's called The End of the Era of Men. Watch out, guys. Now, don't subscribe to that either, of course, for obvious reasons. But I certainly do think that this is the era of women. Dante Alighieri said in his Divine Comedy, "The hottest places on hell are reserved for those who, in times of great moral crisis, maintain their neutrality." So on that note, I leave you with this challenge. Continue taking a stance. You're great at this, and this is your gift, just like your work here in Enactus shows and demonstrates. Your fresh minds mean that you look at the world through fresh eyes. Keep doing it, because the world needs you and needs it more than ever. I wish you all large success over the next 3 days, large success in your careers, but even more large success in your lives. Thank you once again for the privilege of being here. Thank you.
We would now like to open the floor to questions. Please make your way to one of the standing microphones to ask your question.
This is the end of the easy part. No, I can prepare. Now comes the... Okay, guys.
My name is Timothy. I'm from over here. I'm from Calgary, Alberta, Mount Royal University. And
who's from the West?
Yes.
Who's from the West in the house? Make noise.
And my question is, you mentioned that Unilever is a big company that has a real entrepreneurial focus. As students who are going to be looking for companies that are similar, what are some key identifying traits we can be on the watch for?
Good question. I think one of the important things you want to look for in a company is, it's like when you look for a new job, they tell you, yeah, of course, look at where you work, but the most important thing is who you're going to work for, who you're going to work with, who's going to be your boss, who's going to be your mentor, who's going to care for you. And so I would say, look at the people who work in that place and just try to sound them out, try to get a sense of, who they are, what they're doing there, what their ambitions are, and then form your opinion with that. Of course, it helps a lot to be aligned with the purpose or the declared purpose of the company. But it's so easy just to put a vision and declare a purpose and a mission on a website, and even to rehearse a couple of speeches. But the proof is in the pudding, in what that company is doing, but especially in what it will do. And what it will do, I think, is determined by the people who work there. So I'd say try and get a feel for the people who work in different companies from your network, and if you don't have it in the network, just reach out.
Thank you.
One of the things that I noticed in your presentation is you were talking about how you found success and you came from an area of struggle. That's something that I've noticed similar with Arlene Dickinson and Brett Wilson. So what would you say is the value that you and others from struggle have found and take that leads to success?
Another good one. So, you don't need to come from struggle. And by the way, I don't think I come from struggle. I've been extremely fortunate to be born in the family I was born in the place I was born in. So I would never say I came from struggle. Yes, I worked very hard, and I've been incredibly lucky also. And I hope I still get to be lucky. So, I think it's important to be, I talked a bit about it, to be in contact with the people around you, and just to watch for the cues of how people are feeling, how people are what's going through their minds, what part of their personal journey or the experience at the moment. And so be very empathetic. I think that's a really big one, because it's been my experience so far. And by the way, I feel extremely uncomfortable talking about these things because I consider myself very young, although I was only joining Unilever 2 years before Google was founded. So I'd love to come back in 20 years maybe. But I think it's important to have the empathy, because it's been my experience that the biggest leaders don't always have the biggest ideas. They do have the biggest ears, and they appreciate, they can listen, and they can see things happening. And so a great boss told me once, that a good leader in a meeting will never let a good idea not be heard. And so stay open and stay tuned. And like somebody said preceding me in a conference just a couple of moments ago, be curious, be very curious.
Hello, my name is Andrew Mukled, and I'm from the University of Windsor.
Some people from Windsor in the house?
Yes, on our back of our shirts we have "Do More," so I like that you incorporated that in your speech. So my question goes back to you being an expatriate into Canada. What are some of the challenges that you had in kind of starting in a fresh country all over and in a position that you are currently in?
I had to get a really good jacket for the winter. Yeah, I'm not kidding you. No, I'm kidding you. I lived 5 years in the Eastern Europe, so I'm a Latin, but I'm used to the cold weather. So I think it's actually been quite, I was talking with my wife this weekend, and I mentioned every time people ask me, how's it been coming to Canada? It's been one of the most, if not the most welcoming country I've been in. And I loved every country I've been in. I got married in Prague in the Czech Republic when I lived there. I had my first child in the UK. He was born actually when when we moved to the US. And so, and I had my baby girl here. So every place I've been to, I've met people, I've had incredible experiences, and I've enjoyed. But Canada's been a place that's been incredibly welcoming and opening. From the moment you come with all your baggage, and including your kids and all the stuff into the airport, obviously to move into the country, and normally people look at you with a suspicious eye, when you're moving into the country. They want to know that you have all your paperwork in place and everything is sort of prepared. And the only place where I moved in Canada, the officer started asking me, what are your intentions here in Canada? How long are you going to be? And my immediate reaction was trying to justify, I have a contract and I'm only going to be here 2-3 years, and then I promise you I'm gone. And the guy kind of interrupted me. He said, no, look, we're actually, it's very easy for people to get a passport here or a permanent residence, so you should apply, he said to me, And I thought that was incredibly welcoming. And just in the airport, where you meet normally some pretty nasty people, in immigrations around the world, even in nice places, except in Argentina. We're all nice there. But it's been incredibly welcoming. And then my experience knowing Canadians has been great. Canadians have this fame of being wild when they're outside of Canada, but also being very nice people. And it's been my experience that actually, yes, Canadians are very nice people, but if it takes months to get into confidence with somebody at work to tell you really what's going on and to tell you the truth, even when it's something that you are screwing up, in Canada it really takes days or hours. And if you ask somebody, they'll tell you nicely how you're screwing up, and I love that.
Thank you so much for your speech earlier. It's truly inspirational. I have a bit of an open-ended question for you. I'm Benjamin Canning from Enactus Ryerson. And my question is related to, you mentioned food security a little earlier. I would like to know what your opinion is of Canada's situation on food security, whether it's in rural areas across northern Canada or food deserts that we see in local downtown areas.
Yeah, that's hard. So my opinion is very easy. It's terrible. And it's unforgivable in a world where there's surplus of food production. I mean, after several centuries where hunger has been and poverty has been a need because there wasn't enough for everybody. Now, I don't know when the time was exactly, but it's probably been years already since the world produces enough food to feed itself. And to feed itself well, by the way, not just, with substandard food. And so I think it's just unforgivable that there's food insecurity anywhere in the world, and especially more when you come from a country that produces a lot of food and feeds, many times the population of its country, like Argentina. So I'll start speaking for my country. And it's also unforgivable in a country with the wealth per capita, and it really spread out also. It's not just a statistic, with the wealth of Canada. But I do believe in that there's good in people, and there's a lot of good here in Canada, and so I'm incredibly optimistic. Who would have said 15 years ago that the millennial goals would have been reached so quickly, and they have, and of course food security is a big part of them. So I think it's this. Rather than, I really don't want to talk more about it. I want to get going and doing things. And it starts by creating awareness, right? When you have a problem, the first thing is to create awareness and acknowledge that it's there. And so that's what many brands, and that's what we're trying to do also with some of our brands. And it's a purpose that, personally for me, it strikes very close to my heart. Because I've grown up in a very fortunate part of a society, but a society that had poverty right there. And so I could see it every day, and so it makes you empathic when you can see it. And so for me, it's something really fulfilling to be able to drive and try and solve that. But it's incredibly difficult, and it takes so much coordination. And by the way, I can't, I can comment around it, but there's real experts who probably should be much better qualified to answer that question.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Lauren Grenier, and I'm from Sheridan College. I really enjoyed your presentation, and it enticed me to come up here and ask you this one question. How do you choose or find the right people to join the Unilever team who have the same vision and passion as yourself?
By meeting them, like places like this. But seriously, there's a whole standard of leaderships, but there's really three things that are important for me, and I think are important because the standards of leadership that you work with, many companies have these in one way or the other, depending on what sect you're meeting with. At the time, they'll have a different languages, but I do think it boils down to three things. One is the ability to relate with others, to have that emotional IQ, that empathy, to be able to work together in a team, to be able to create trust in those around you. The other important thing is drive. Do I have the necessary drive to go through tough situations and power through? And the third one is judgment. You're always looking for, when you're working in teams and you're assessing, who's ready to take on more. And judgment is very important because as centralized as companies would like to be sometimes, everything is incredibly decentralized in reality. And so it's just like that old saying, that not even the best plan will survive the best shot of gunfire in the battleground. And it's exactly the same with companies and business. We get to regroup, and it's a bit safer than war. But it's very hard to plan, and so judgment is so critical because it's more often than less that people will have to make calls, and it's important that they have judgment. So ability to relate with others, judgment, and And what's the second one I said? That's it, drive, thank you.
Hi, my name is Shad Mancholi. I'm from Sheridan College as well. You sound very passionate about what you do. My question to you is, how did you find your passion, and what advice do you have for individuals who are searching for that same passion?
Well, the only advice I would tell you is like, don't look to find it, it'll find you. It's completely by chance that I bumped into these things. You know, if you believe in chance, I don't. It's probably destiny or a bit of both. But it's really been by chance. When I got into Unilever, it wasn't this plan didn't even exist. I got into Unilever by chance completely. There was an article in the newspaper, and I needed a job, and my dad, you know, he woke me up like he always did on Saturdays at 9 a.m. No matter what time I went to bed, he'd say, get up, you know, get up, go do something. And he threw me this article, this ad in the paper. So that's how I got into Unilever. So it's, I think, you know, just visualize, allow things to come to you, and just stay open to find that these things will find you, what you want to do, what will drive you. You'll know it like love, you know, or when you go and look for a place to live. Those things where you know when you see your place or when you see your love, you know it in that moment. So the passions will find you, and I sort of alluded to it just moments ago. No matter where you are, you have enormous potential, and you're a living testament of this, by the way, right? Nobody forced you to be here. You're here because you enjoy, you have the passion, you're great. You're ambitious, but in the sense of ambitious to achieve great things for yourself and for the people around you. And so, you know, keep doing what you're doing, and I'm sure you'll be fine.